So let's talk about what you just brought up with teaching the pet parents about what it's like, or what the fear-free process means. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that's great. Great point. So for pet parents, there has to be some sort of awareness here that there is going to be an investment in this fear-free program. So whether it's a fear-free trainer, a fear-free veterinarian, or a fear-free groomer, one of the things is there's a little bit of an investment required by the pet parent up front. So for example, in grooming, if I have a pet that I encounter that is really anxious with the grooming process, one of the first things I'm going to recommend is that pet comes in for a grooming appointment every 2 weeks. Ideally, at the very least every 4 weeks, I want to be seeing that dog monthly. And that might be every 2 weeks for 6 months or for 3 months. But the more frequently that your pet can come in, the faster we can counter condition. So a lot of pet parents think sometimes that is unreasonable to be bringing their dog in for a grooming session every 2 weeks. And it doesn't have to be a full haircut. You could just do a bath and brush in between or something like that. But it really, really helps with the counter conditioning process. And so if you just invest more time up front, you're not going to have to be going through the fear-free counter conditioning process as long. So for example, if you bring in your dog every 2 weeks for 2 months, then they might be ready to go back to an every 4 to 6 week schedule at that time. But if you're only bringing them in once every 6 or 8 weeks, it might take years, 2 years before that dog is counter conditioned and comfortable with grooming again. So there is a little bit of a time investment and a little bit of a financial investment up front if you're coming in for bathing sessions more frequently, but it's going to pay off in the long run because your pet is going to be comfortable and happy, and you're going to be able to get the haircut that you want on your dog as well. So that's kind of the next piece that I think pet parents should really be aware of during this process, is that it might be a little bit at a time. There are times when your dog just is done, when they are too afraid. And if we try to do anything more, it's going to be a hindrance to what we're trying to do in the long run. It's not going to help. So this is a hard part for groomers as well. I will send out a dog without their feet being trimmed and their hair looks like Albert Einstein and there's a mat hanging off of their tail and they look awful and it sucks. I hate it just as much as the pet parent hates it. But if you trust your groomer and you bring them back in a week later and we can trim the feet and then bring them back in a week later, we can get the head done. That is going to make it so that a year from now, your dog is going to be able to get a full haircut in one session. So it can be frustrating. It can be irritating and know that your groomer is just as ashamed, just as disappointed that they can't get the full haircut done as you are, right?
Yeah, but I bet you there's still that small part of you that's like, oh, we got this far with this dog.
Oh my gosh, yes, totally.
Little thing, but inside we're like, ooh,
Yes,
But yeah, it is hard for people to. I think as human beings, it's hard for people to be proactive in any situation, especially with our animals. But it is a little bit more like, oh, I have to spend all this time. But everything you're saying, and I call it future-proofing your puppy or your dog. And that means that future-proofing means so many different things. But this is a part of future-proofing. So what I do is teach my clients to hold the pause and play with them and go in between. When I had my daycare every day, I don't care if your dog came to me 5 days a week, I am checking your dog for fleas and ticks every single day. Because we're in Florida, anything can happen. Yep. Any animal or insect can jump on you and your pet at any moment. But part of the curriculum for me with training was, let's get the nail clippers out. And even if you just touch them on their, nails or whatever, most people are afraid of clipping nails. And
understandable.
I live with somebody who was like, oh, every time I'm like, we have to clip Troy's nails. And she's like, I don't know. I need to leave pizza for her when I do feed her pizza, feed Troy little treats. hands aren't strong anymore, damn it. But it's just pairing all the positives and stuff is
Yeah.
like what my message is to my clients. And what do you think about people who not people, but what do you think about recommending, hey, maybe turning on a blow dryer, but far away from your dog, not like right on top of your dog, or turning clippers on and, turn it on, give a treat. I do that with people with the vacuum cleaner
Yeah.
for dogs who want to attack it.
Yeah. That's a great question. And it's kind of a tough one to answer because, like you just said, you'll do it with your clients and turn on the vacuum and things like that, right? If you can read your dog well, then that's great. If you can read, okay, my dog is a little bit uncomfortable, but maybe they're sniffing and they're a little bit curious. So this is good conditioning, right? This is positive. We're working through it. But if, your dog is particularly fearful of it, you could also make it worse. And I see this all the time, specifically with the nail trimming. When pet parents try to desensitize at home, I'll have a dog where normally I do their nails no problem. And then one day they come in for a grooming appointment and they're being really funky about their feet. And I'm like, did you try to trim your dog's nails at home? And they're like, we did try to trim our dog's nails at home. And I'm like, oh, you ruined it.
Oh,
So it can be great if you can read your dog well, and you can understand what is just enough desensitization and what is going to push them over the edge, when to stop, when to reward, all of those types of things. It can be great, but it does take a little bit of skill and of training to be able to read your dog well enough to help instead of hurt the process. So if you've been working with a trainer, or if your groomer has shown you what to do and shown you how to read those signs, then by all means practice at home. But I personally am a little hesitant with recommending that pet parents desensitize those things at home. I personally would rather them leave it to me for the most part. So now there are certain dogs where I'm like, oh yeah, these guys, they can handle this at home. They can start the desensitizing process and I'll make that recommendation. But generally speaking, it's not quite as easy as as people would like to think. And timing is huge. Being able to read your dog is huge. So it's not for everyone. But again, if you have the support of a trainer like yourself or your groomer, then there's definitely things that you can do at home to support. And turning on a blow dryer or putting clippers on them or something might be really helpful at home for some pets.
Yeah. I mean, I don't trust my clients in group class with a clicker.
Mm-hmm.
The first time, like I won't give them one. They want to pay me, and I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
And they're like, what the hell? And I'm like, no, because you're gonna click it like a remote control to make your dog do stuff, and it doesn't work that way,
Yeah.
And, yeah. So yeah, that's kind of funny, and it's like I find that our expectations as humans can be way up here. The ceiling is too high. The brass ring is like, forget it, and not every dog is gonna deal with it the same way your last dog dealt with it, even if they're the same breed.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know I get a lot of it. My colleagues get a lot of it, and it's like, I've had poodles all my life, or I've had Jack Russells all my life, and this one isn't like the last one. And it's like, you're right. Like, even mutts aren't the same as when I grew up. They're really not. They're not as diluted. They're more like Troy, or like, the new designer dog, where they're purposefully taking two breeds and combining them. The dilution doesn't seem to be there as much, but just like siblings, human siblings, like, they're not the same.
Right. And I think one of my kind of pet peeves with just how our society views these pets in general, and it's nobody's fault, it's just a lack of conversations about it, is the individuality of pets. Like you just said, they're all different. And I feel like we don't place enough importance on speaking their language and communicating with them in a way that makes sense to them. I mean, even as simple as things like, I know you see this all the time in the dog training world, the debate of what a dog walk should look like, what your dog should be doing on a walk. And you've got people that are like, oh, they need to be in a focused heel and engaged the whole time, right? And then you have people that are like, let them sniff, let them pee on stuff. And I was guilty of, even, just a few years ago, working with my Doberman, and I'm like, she needs to be in an engaged heel. She needs to be in an engaged heel. And then I get a border terrier puppy, and I'm like, I'm just looking at him, and he wants to go sniff. Of course he does. Why would he not? And so I just recently, in the last kind of 10 years or so, went through that transition and that pivot of, it doesn't have to be this way. Let me focus on the dog, and what does this dog want and need? And let him sniff, let him pee, let him do all those things, right? That's fulfilling for them. And that's his language. That's what he wants to do on his walk. And he's a terrier. He wants to go dive in that bush. And if that means that I have to brush some debris out of his fur afterwards, that's what I'm going to do. So I think we place a lot of control on our dogs. And for certain breeds, again, like with my Doberman, I felt that was my responsibility. That's a powerful breed that you have to make sure there's a little bit of extra responsibility with those powerful breeds like that. But I think we take the control too far, where we almost like want our dogs to be our teddy bears, as opposed to recognizing that they're their own being with their own feelings, emotion, wants, needs, etc. And that we have created them to want these specific things, right? My terrier wants to dive into bushes because humans made him want to do that. So I think that's something that I see with pet parents, that they don't really, that I would love if there was a little bit more awareness to your dog and your dog's wants and needs and how to meet them.
Yeah, like some dogs, just talking about this with Caroline Murray, is like some of these animals, they're hardwired to do one job, and that's it.
Exactly.
And it's where you got them from.
Mm-hmm.
You could get it, from anywhere. And this Jack Russell, or this Border Collie, or Border Terrier, or Malinois, they're like hardwired. Or
Yep.
Troy, who's pretty much down the middle, like.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, when we first met, like, I don't know, 9-10 years ago, yeah, I was like, he kind of just doesn't respond right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, he's moving, his nostrils are going 5 million miles a minute. He's air sending. The beagle in him is like, wait, did you smell that?
Yeah.
I'm smelling your breath right now. What are you saying to me? And a few feet away, but it's like, yeah. And as far as for me, it's like everybody was like, when are we going to teach the dogs how to heel? And I'm like, just go for a walk with your dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want your dog to be next to you. I don't want your dog dragging you down the street.
Of course.
But it's like, just go for a walk.
Yeah.
I'm not the person who does the training of like, heel, sit, stay, forward, back. No. This is about going on a walk with your dog and having the relationship with them where, they can wander a little bit away from you, and you can be like, hey, come back, Troy, or whatever. And they respond, and then you let them go again, and then you can call them back. And, but, let him be a dog. Or sometimes I'm like, Troy is like, like, he's pretty much the dog that is black and white. You can't be gray with him, because he'll take like the whole entire thing.
He's got beagle and boxer, so
all the things, right? But it's, when I let him outside, or when I'm doing stuff in here with him, especially when I let him outside, is like, go be a dog. Just go be a dog. Or when we take him for walks, it's like, go ahead, sniff, pee. We were so happy he actually peed on something.
Oh, great.
The first time in, I don't know, maybe his entire life, because Tammy's like, every time we are away from the house, he never pees. And last week we were out with him, and he was like, oh, he peed, he's peed.
I love it.
Yeah, and he did it several times on the walk.
Great. He's feeling himself.
Yes, it is. And, we're paying a little extra attention to him because, we just lost Bella a few months ago. And
sorry.
Yeah. And Bella was like his, like, not really his mom or anything. She was older than him, but she just, she was always there with him from when he was a puppy, and this is the first time that he's been without her, so we're just extra. He got so many new enrichment toys, and there's another
Oh, buddy.
along the way, and there's like all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's important again to provide, and I also think when it comes to also, I always say, a good dog is a tired dog, and it's a dog that's been exercised physically and mentally, and I know that transfers over to you as well in your line of work. You can't have a Malinois who hasn't had any exercise come in or whatever and be like, yes, it's still well.
Yeah. And, going back to the kind of like letting, understanding that dogs are dogs, and that ties into grooming as well. Like understanding that it's weird. I can only imagine how weird it would be to have your tail brushed. Like must be such a weird feeling. It's not something that before I was a groomer, I ever would have thought of. I would have thought, a leg feels the same as brushing a tail or whatever, but I have seen dogs react to that stimulation of having their tail brushed consistently, that I'm like, that must feel really weird. So like, we got to be respectful of that as well, and we have to communicate with the pet parents on that and make sure that they know, like, this is kind of funky. It's normal for him as a dog to not want his tail brushed, right? And we just got to kind of work with them on that. And like you were mentioning as well, it's our responsibility to say, hey, I think you might need to take your dog on a run before they come, right? Like for those Malinois or those border collies or the Huskies, those types of dogs, it will definitely make our lives so much easier if you can bring an exercise dog in instead of a dog that's rearing and ready to go.
Up and ready to explode. Yeah, it's like, they're ready to explode with energy. They're so excitable. What else do you want to talk about?
I think we pretty much covered. I was trying to think more, again, from kind of your world, your training side of things, and incorporating the fear-free into just like the general practice of the pet's life. I think we pretty much covered all of the main things that I wanted to talk about. I think that was it. I wanted to kind of touch on the respecting the fact that your dog is its own thing. But yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything that I wanted to hit. Did you have any other questions? Or I know you had on the list, you had mentioned about why short hair dogs need grooming. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that as well.
Yes, I just saw that. I finally found what I sent Liz.
Yeah.
You're free. Yeah. And what if your dog is short hair? And do short hair dogs shed? And do they too hot? And all the things about short hair dogs.
Okay. Go. Yes. All the things about short hair dogs. Step one, yes, they do shed. And because of that, you do not want to shave them. That is going to be the first thing that I say about short hair dogs. This also applies for medium coat dogs. So short hair, you're thinking, like a French bulldog, right. Medium, more, husky, German shepherd kind of thing. Right. And then long hair is, of course, your Shih Tzus and your Yorkies and things. So short coat, medium coat dogs, do not shave those dogs. It is detrimental to their skin and coat. I could spend, an entire podcast talking just about that. So just if you want to do your own research, go for it. Moral of the story, don't shave your labs, don't shave your pugs, and so on and so forth. But they do still need regular grooming. So they have kind of different types of hair that grows on them. They have their top coat and their undercoat, which we're all pretty familiar with, right? So the top coat is the really healthy, strong structure hairs that are a little bit thicker, a little bit coarser. And then the undercoat is that soft, fluffy stuff that sits underneath. So all dogs should technically be bathed about every 21 days. That's the keratinization cycle of the skin. So dead skin cells start to die after 21 days. And that's about, generally speaking, if you want to go textbook level, how often all dogs should be bathed, including your short hair dogs. Short hair dogs have a lot more oil in their coat than the medium and the long hair breeds do. So with that, they can either get really, really stinky and dirty, or they can get really dry and need those oils replenished. finish. So there's those are some of the two main things that we see with short hair dogs when it comes to the oil there. And then of course the undercoat. If the dog's skin and coat were genetically designed and engineered to protect them from the elements and from parasites and from, debris and from scratches from the bushes and things like that, right? So it's engineered to keep them comfortable. But if we don't remove that undercoat, the skin and coat can't do its job. So if we're not brushing out any of the dead undercoat that's sitting on there, that's when we start to see things like skin infections, hot spots, or even really, really dry skin as well. So it's super important for your short-coated dogs to have their undercoat removed regularly. And so that's where grooming comes in. Now, you can brush your dog at home, you can bathe your dog at home, and you can remove a ton of the undercoat. Nothing is going to remove as much of that undercoat and the dead skin cells as the high velocity dryers that we have in the grooming salon. So there's I know. They're pretty expensive. So if you want to get one at home as a pet parent, they're an amazing tool, but they are really expensive. And in my opinion, as a pet parent, not worth it to have at home. Right. But you'll hear it time and time again from the pet parents, no matter what I do, no matter how good I wash them, it's never the same as when they come into the grooming salon. And part of that is because of the training that we have, right? And the skills and the tools. But a part of it is just purely the tools as well. The fact that we have these high velocity dryers and we have happy hoodies, which go around the dog's ears to protect them from the really loud velocity dryers as well. But, aside from things like of course, your dog still needs their nails done, needs their ears cleaned, need their glands checked, need their paw pads checked for foxtails or whatever it may be. The skin and coat maintenance is still important for short hair dogs as well. Now, people have been bathing their labs at home for hundreds of years with no problems, and that's totally fine. But when we're looking at what is going to be best for their wellness, definitely having a professional grooming session is going to be the best thing that you can do for your short-coated dogs to help kind of prevent any of these problems from coming. A lot of times we'll start seeing the labs come into the shop once they get a skin infection because they weren't being cleaned properly at home. So we see a lot of reactive care when it comes to the short hair dogs, when really if you were just a little bit more proactive about it, you wouldn't necessarily have those problems.
Mm-hmm. Yes, agreed. I mean, I brush Troy almost every day, and
awesome.
I got some shedding thing, and I'm like, this is insane. And he's got short hair, but the undercoat is just never ending. And when we bathe him like once a month. And when we bathe him, it's like tons of undercoat. And one thing I wanted to ask you, just kind of talking about the undercoat and skin, what breed out there is, well, I think Frenchies are still the most popular breed. But I'm thinking about them and like Shar-Peis and stuff. What skin problems do you see with those dogs? And are there special things that people need to do if they have a breed like a Frenchie or a Shar-Pei or any type of dog like that? That doesn't seem like especially the Shar-Peis, they have just different type of coat and don't necessarily shed as much maybe, but still have the wrinkles.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Shar-Peis are kind of a unique breed. There's a few of these breeds out there where they're kind of an anomaly, and Shar-Peis are one where they're very oily breed. And part of that, has to do with their skin folds and things, but because they're extra oily and because they have skin folds, a lot of times you'll get some sort of skin infection in those folds. So when you're talking Shar-Peis and you're talking French Bulldogs, those breeds specifically, I'm thinking veterinarian. Talk to your veterinarian. Use your veterinarian as much as you can. They may need some medication. They may need a special diet. They may need some sort of treatment for their allergies. Both of those breeds are really predisposed to different conditions that we see manifest in some sort of skin issue, whether that's like a skin infection or things like that. So, but that also has to do a lot with genetics and breeding and things like that. So that's why I say just if you have either of those breeds, get them to the veterinarian as soon as you can so that you can start proactively preventing some of those problems. We see a lot of, excuse me, we see a lot of dry skin and hot spots with the Frenchies as well. Their fur is like so thin that there's not as much protection for them. So if they get a bug bite or if they get a scrape and then they lick it, there's not a lot of undercoat or even top coat to prevent them from creating this skin infection from chewing on it, right? So we do see that a lot with Frenchies. Also with their tails, because some of their tails are so funky, you'll get some issues around there as well. And even some like patches where extra fur grows and you're just like kind of pulling out chunks of fur around that strange little kinked tail.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. And a lot of times those breeds need some sort of prescription shampoo. Maybe there's something going on with their actual, their environment and their skin that needs something prescription. So I would always say for those two types of breeds that's something to consider. When you're looking more at pugs don't have quite as much of those problems as the Shar-Peis and the French Bulldogs do. So it's more, kind of wiping their eyes out and the folds, getting in the folds and things like that. But they do also shed more than you would expect. Pugs shed kind of a lot. So
they really do.
And what's interesting with pugs is when you're looking at a pug, you can't necessarily tell that it's got a ton of undercoat like you can with a husky. Husky, you can see all the things that I want to pull out, all those little tufts, right? You don't have that with a pug. They look smooth, and then you start getting in there, and they are just snowing fur.
It's amazing. It's really amazing how that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But also any of those dogs with the folds, of course, you want to be keeping the folds clean, whether you're using like a nice hypoallergenic wipe or a warm washcloth or something. Keeping those folds clean is always super important as well. But those Shar-Peis and your bulldogs, English bulldogs, French bulldogs, rely on your veterinarian because it's going to be multiple pieces that are required to keep your pet healthy. It's not just a matter of how often do you bathe them, but it's going to be things like diet and stuff like that as well.
Again, the holistic.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if people have questions for you or want to find out about the franchise, maybe they want to open a franchise or maybe they want to go to one, like my people in Tampa Bay, and Sarasota, my friends out there, like tell us how to reach you. And also like if they have questions for you, like how do they reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys can go to wellgroomedpets.com or wellgroomedopportunities.com. Either one of those. Wellgroomed Pets is more for our pet parents and groomers and things like that. Wellgroomed Opportunities is more for people who are interested in opening up their own well-groomed location. Either one of those, if you fill out the form that's on the website and just, put my name in there, say that you're trying to reach me, that'll come to me. And then, of course, I'm on LinkedIn as well, Julia Benning. And if you want to reach me directly on there. But yeah, really the best way would probably just be through filling out one of the contact forms on either wellgroomedpets.com or wellgroomedopportunities.com. And I am totally open to any questions. I'm here because I love supporting pet parents and therefore supporting the pets and living their best lives. So always open to questions. Anything I can do to help anybody out, I'm all ears.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely. I'll put all your info down below in the description and everything.